Welcome to Dave Examines Movies and TV. Today, I will be examining something that you shouldn't think about, nor should you say it. A terrifying creature that will come after you if you say its name. Heck, it'll even come after you if you think about him. It's the Bye-Bye Man. Hey, I'm Dave, and I created DaveExaminesMovies.com. I've been reviewing movies for over a decade, and I believe I've discovered the ultimate method for reviewing film. I've always used a 1 out of 100 star rating, but somehow that was still too biased and inaccurate for my taste. I wanted something so unquestionable that even if you hated something that I loved, you could appreciate my logic, and I found it. I call it Interpreting the Stars, which splits a movie into 10 categories. 5 solid categories that fit any film, and 5 specialty categories created specifically for the movie at hand. The first 5 categories are people, writing, behind the scenes, narrative arc, and overall entertainment. Each of these categories will have 5 subcategories of their own that ultimately define the star rating of the film. You'll no longer have to ask why a film is rated 76% versus 77%. You will now know what each and every star represents. This is Dave Examines Movies and TV. Alright, how's everybody doing today? Pretty good, pretty good. This is the second time I've had to at least start recording this episode because, well, put it simply, I had the mic off, which doesn't help anybody. So today I wanted to talk about The Bye-Bye Man, or kind of in general horror films, because horror films, kind of like comedy, they are geared towards a specific audience, because comedy is one of those things where everybody has a different sense of humor, so it won't click with everybody. Same thing with horror. Everybody has a different idea of what horror is and what it means, and ultimately that's basically what's going on. I've seen a lot of people hate The Bye-Bye Man. It currently stands at 3.9 out of 10 on IMDb. I've seen people on Facebook talking about it, just complaining all over the place about it. I mean, I get it. It's just a horror film. But I wanted to talk a little bit about how it affected me. Now, when it comes to horror films specifically, but pretty much any movie will do. Whenever it comes to horror films, I believe there's a right and a wrong way to watch them. And I always believe that the right way to watch them is in the dark and as glued to the screen as humanly possible, if you can do that. That's why a theater experience is always probably better than one on TV. Now, I have a Samsung Galaxy S7, so when I got that, I also got the Gear VR. And the nice thing about that is it has these, a bunch of different features for 3D, but also it's got this huge, very realistic looking cinema that uses through the Oculus server. So the Oculus Video has a virtual theater that just looks real. And in fact, it uses 3D sound to make things a little bit better, because if you're looking at the virtual screen and you look to the right to see where the exit door is in the virtual theater, the sound of the screen follows the direction of your head. So if you're looking right, you'll only hear the movie in the left ear. If you're looking back at the screen projector, you'll kind of hear the movie playing behind you. So it's using 3D virtual sound to make it more real and everything. You can even watch a movie when you're laying down in bed by using the Void feature on that. Or there's other video players in the Gear VR that do the same thing, but the Void will let you lay down and watch a movie. That's kind of how I watched this movie. I wanted it to be completely all in this video, because people do complain about it. I wanted to see how quote-unquote scary it was, and whatever. So that's how I like to watch horror films. And how did this one compare to, say, some other films that I consider terrifying? I don't say terrifying, but, scary, spooky, things like the nature. So to get into that, let's start getting into the ratings here that I gave it. As always, we have our 5 categories, and that for people, our subcategories are acting, characters, casting, importance, and chemistry. I would say The Bye Bye Man isn't a huge people category type of film. It doesn't really focus too much on those, unfortunately. Every single one of these subcategories got a 1 out of 2 star rating, which is very average. It's not bad, it's not good. It's just, you know what I mean? So this could be a major indicator of what people complained about. The acting wasn't incredible. It was as basic as you can think of when you're thinking of horror film. It's just people being scared all the time or paranoid and whatever. There's not much, spectrum to what they're doing there. So acting 1 out of 2 stars. Characters 1 out of 2 stars. The best character in this, arguably, for obvious reasons, is the Bye Bye Man. But everybody else is rather forgettable and just bland. I say that because it's a horror film, and characters are really important for horror films, because if somebody dies off, you want to care about them enough to be angered by the movie. Not so here. The characters are bland and forgettable, and I can't say I really cared when... I won't say who, but some people did die. So character-oriented, 1 out of 2 stars. Next up is casting. Did they cast the right amount of people? Were they all the only kind of people to play these roles? Not in the least bit. I don't think they were bad at what they did, but once again, they're forgettable and everything. The only person that was memorable was the Bye Bye Man, and you can ever barely see his actual face. So anybody could actually play the Bye Bye Man as well. Casting 1 out of 2 stars. That brings us up to importance. Did all the people play a role in the film? Did they add to the plot in some way, somehow? The answer to that, I would probably once again say no. The importance, everybody really kind of blended together as far as that goes. The main characters even. Not a lot of importance. Like I said, this category of people is just not cutting it for this film. Importance, not very much here. 1 out of 2 stars. Chemistry. How did everybody work well together? Did they, whatever. Did they bounce off each other well? They bounce off each other just fine. It was just not a chemistry-centric film either. They didn't have to, so it's not a really big concern of the film. So 1 out of 2 stars for chemistry, bringing the character score up to 5 out of 10 possible stars. So not off on a very good. That's like 50% right off the bat, but hold off a little bit. It might get better, and it sort of does, sort of doesn't. So let's keep on going. The writing score is next. In the writing, we have dialogue, how balanced it is, the story, the originality, how interesting it is. So let's get into that. How well does the dialogue consider? Well, it's okay. It's not crazy good. Like, the whole don't think it, don't say it is very, very memorable. They say it multiple times in the film, but that's about as memorable as anything gets in the film. So I can't say it's a very great with the dialogue, but it's okay. So the dialogue's 1 out of 2 stars there. The next one we're going to talk about is it a balanced movie? Can we comprehend what's going on, or is there just too many characters, too many settings, too many things going on at once? I would probably say this is a balanced movie. A lot of horror films are, though, because in order to really suck in an audience and get them scared, you kind of have to have a balanced story. I would say it's pretty comprehensive, and it knows what it's talking about. So as far as that's considered, I would say that it is a very balanced story, but that's not surprising. So 2 out of 2 stars there. Next up, story. Is it a good story? Once upon a time, we have this guy you can't talk about because he's gonna kill you. No, it's kind of a stupid story, really. All the movie wants to do is kind of spook you out when you're watching it. And that's fine and dandy, but it really limits as far as how good a story can be. So, anyways, the story, I gave it a 0 out of 2 stars because it could have been better. So, there you go. Originality. Have we seen this movie before? Well, it's a horror film that's about this creature that's going to come after you if you think about it. Truthfully, I would say it's not original. There's some original aspects to it, I think, but for the most part, it's not. I kept on thinking Boogeyman, actually, when I was watching this. So I wouldn't consider it original, but there are some things here and there that I liked overall, so I'm going to give it 1 out of 2 stars for that. Next one's interesting. I would say this is kind of an interesting concept. The nice thing about this film that I don't think a lot of people understand or equate with me when it comes to scary things is your mind can trudge up and can create the scariest image possible. So your brain can create, your brain can create the most terrifying image possible, and I think this movie takes that into consideration. You do see the Bye-Bye Man, but you see him in the dark where you would normally see shadows and things, which is kind of brings us back to childhood when we're afraid of the dark and we're afraid of things in the closet and afraid of things like that. It's so vague in the movie. As far as writing is considered, it's not the most brilliant form of writing, but as far as bringing you back to your childhood, being afraid of the dark and being afraid of what you can't understand, I think it brings you back there, and I think it does a good job. So I do consider that a very interesting concept of what's going on here. So 2 out of 2 stars for how interesting it is. That brings the writing score overall to 6 out of 10 possible stars. I think that brings us up to 11 out of 20, so we're a little bit over 50% now, but really not all that much. So next up is on it. Sorry about the blank spaces there. I got my wife is contacting me through Facebook Messenger, and I'm trying to talk to her while she's on break. Okay, sorry. So the next one up is BTS score. That is behind the scenes. Now, if a movie's done right, or if a horror film is done right, a lot of it has to do with what's going on behind the scenes. So we're talking about visuals, the directing, the editing, the advertisement, and the music. With the visuals, I was really impressed with some of the shadows. Like I was saying before, the imagery with the shadows basically coming to life and turning into the Bye-Bye Man. But that was slim, and it kind of went away pretty quickly, and I was a little disappointed in that. Because then the Bye-Bye Man starts looking like a regular person in daylight. And when that happens, it takes a little bit of the magic of the scare factor away. And because of that, I had to dock it. I was almost going to give it 2 out of 2 stars because I did like the beginning of the movie and how everything looked, and it was bringing me back to my childhood. But then when things got brighter, I was like, I don't get it. I don't get how this is a horror film. So it's kind of back and forth for me. So that I'm going to say 1 out of 2 stars for that. So the visuals, 1 out of 2 stars. Directing is next. I would say this is an interesting movie because it's got a lot of interesting things going on with it that I'm trying to figure out how a director would direct things. I think he did a good job. I can't exactly explain why, but a lot of the shots in it, whether it's daytime or nighttime, look like it took some consideration from the director of how he wanted it shot and how he wanted the story to be told. Now, it isn't the most amazing thing I've ever seen, but as far as horror films are considered, I think there's some good things to be found here. So I will go ahead and give it 2 out of 2 stars there. Just because, be nice. Editing, nothing overall satisfying. It was okay, I wish it would have gone a little bit deeper than it did with some of the cuts, but for the most part, are just average there. So 1 out of 2 stars is going to be my score for the behind the scenes. Next up is advertisement. Is it as advertised? Well, I would definitely say yes here, because I remember watching the trailers for this and thinking that's an interesting concept, and they kept true to the concept. The concept itself is probably the scariest thing of the film. I don't know if they went the right way with it, but they went the way that they could in order to go to make the movie. So 2 out of 2 stars for the advertisement. The movie was exactly as I thought it was going to be. So as far as the music considered, again, nothing really spectacular there. Just, normal spooky stuff. Blah, 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 blah. Don't know what to tell you. So 1 out of 2 stars for music. That brings the BTS score actually up to 7 out of 10, which is better than the last 2. So it's kind of climbing up. 5, 6, 7. So the last one was 11 out of 20. That brings us up to 18 out of 30. Not terrible, but, still not great. Narrative arc score, once again, climbing a little bit. It was 5, 6, 7. Now this one's 8. I know, it's weird. Introduction, inciting incident, obstacles, climax, falling action makes up the next category of narrative arc. So the introduction was pretty normal. You got all these main characters that are being told the story of the Bye Bye Man. Well, sort of. They kind of figure it out on their own. You figure out what's going on because of this flashback, and then you have these characters that are learning about them. And you learn about them, too, and what's going on there. So introduction, perfectly fine, 2 out of 2 stars. Inciting incident is when they mostly find out about the Bye Bye Man. You find the scratches in the cupboard. You have the psychic that goes through the house trying to ward it off of its demons or whatever, but, fails miserably, I guess. And then you kind of figure out the kind of the legend of the Bye Bye Man. You can't think it, you can't say it, but the main characters are like, what are you talking about? This is the Bye Bye Man. You say it, and then the crap hits the fan, right? So that was the inciting incident that turned back time. You can't take it away. So 2 out of 2 stars for the inciting incident and crossing of the threshold. The next one's obstacles. Well, that one's pretty obvious, isn't it? It's a scary movie. It's a horror film where you're trying to escape the Bye Bye Man. So the obstacles are just that, escaping from the Bye Bye Man. I'm just going to say it how it is. Say 2 out of 2 stars for that. Climax. Does it have a good ending? I'm not going to ruin what that is, but I would say that, yeah, the climax is pretty good. It builds up to that point, and it's a surprising, somewhat, I guess, of an ending. So 2 out of 2 for climax, but I will give the falling action absolutely nothing, because there was no falling action. If anything, it was just a setup for a sequel, which is not the best way to end a movie, because what if it never has a sequel? Okay, so the narrative arc score is indeed 8 out of 10 possible stars. The last one we had was, 18 out of 30, so now we're talking 18... Look at me, I can't even count. 26 out of 40 possible stars so far. Alright, so 26 out of 40, let's move it on. Will it be 9 as to keep on escalating? No, it won't be. Sorry, it kind of goes down again. Entertainment scores the last typical category on our list, and that goes to deal with rewatchability, how fun it is, if you have an impulse to buy it or talk about it, and of course, does it suck the audience in? Okay, so for these, Entertainment is always the hardest category to win from me, from Dave. And that's because entertainment in film is not as focused on as it used to be. But for horror and for comedy and for action, they typically do try to entertain an audience a little bit more. But I'm not sensing as much entertainment factors in this film. We have a rewatchability. How rewatchable is it? For me, the answer there had to be maybe. And that's if I saw it flipping through channels or somebody wanted to watch it with me. I'm like, okay, let's go ahead and watch it. Or maybe to rewatch it if there's a sequel or something. I would say maybe in those terms. But I wouldn't go seeking it for all willy-nilly and I want to see it again. I don't think so. So for that, I'll give it 1 out of 2 possible stars for rewatchability. Next up, is it fun? Is it a fun movie? I would say it's fun. I had a fun time watching it. Doesn't mean it's any good. I had a fun time watching it. It kills time and, and it is kind of spooky here and there. So 2 out of 2 stars for how fun it is. The next 2, I have 0 out of 2 stars, and that's impulse to buy it and impulse to talk about it. I don't want to buy it. Not even as cheap. It's not there for me. And, some horror films are, some horror films aren't. Heck, I even bought the entire series of Saw. And, yeah, the Saw movies aren't the greatest movies in the world, and you can make fun of them all you want. But I thought they were smart when it came down to the twists at the end and how they changed things up for each and every movie. I thought they did things that were smart. Somewhere in the heart of it, I thought it was smart. So I bought those. But I won't be buying this. I probably won't even be buying a sequel if they have a sequel. And there's reasons behind that, but I won't get into it. But I had no impulse to buy it. The next one is, do I have an impulse to talk about it? Do I have to talk about this? Oh, man. No. Nobody's gonna see this movie like I saw it as far as how clever it was with bringing you back to your childhood and being afraid of the dark. Because a ton of movies already do that. There's movies that already do it better than this. I just thought this did an okay job in that field, but it's not something that is revolutionary. It's nothing like that. So no, I don't really have an impulse to talk about. 0 out of 2 stars again. Next one, does it suck an audience in? For that one, I say yeah. I think it does suck an audience in. Either for the right reasons or the wrong, that's up to you. I don't know. But I do think it sucks an audience in and they want to see what's going to happen. So 2 out of 2 stars for that. That brings our entertainment score up to 5. 5 out of 10 possible stars, which brings our 26 up to 31 out of 50. Not the greatest overall score there, but we're not done yet. We have to go through our specialty questions that I wrote before watching the film. And for those, let's get into it. The first specialty question that I had was a very obvious one. And it's the one that I ask every time I watch a horror film is, how scary is it? What's the scare factor? Now, I said it before, it was kind of spooky. And I will say it again, since I saw it in that experience that I was talking about before with the VR, I saw it with a screen that was like 200 freaking feet. It was huge. This huge screen and a black room, and that's all it was. It was just me and the screen, and that's all I had to watch it. When you exclude everything around you and you kind of force yourself to be sucked into this world, it is spooky. You kind of want to close your eyes and look away. But this makes it so you really can't. So the scare factor for me, it was 10 out of 10. I was spooked out, and yes, it had a little bit more jump scares than it probably should have, and that means it's going to be forgettable as far as how scary it is. But in the moment, it was scary. So I will give it what it wants and say 10 out of 10 stars. And I didn't give it 5 because it did bring me back to my childhood of being scared of shadows in my room and things like that. So, scare factor 10. Next one is horror. I know it's just like the same thing. But no, I wanna ask specifically with horror, how does it fit in with other horror films like it? Does it kind of stand out? or does it blend in with the rest? Is it unique in a way? I wanted to ask this, and not specifically how scary it is. With the horror, I think it was clever. I think it dealt with a lot of things that mess with your mind. I mean, yeah, it kind of got away from that as the movie went along, but when it began, I think it had a really good stance on what it wanted to be. So for that, I'm going to say 10 out of 10 as well. These are probably the most arguable and biased and everything like that, but it is what it is. The next thing I wanted to know was the significance to the title, The Bye-Bye Man. Is there a significance to it? Is there a reason why he's called The Bye-Bye Man? For that, I gave it 0 out of 10 stars because there's really not. You could call it whatever you want, and that, like I was saying when I was watching it, I kept on thinking, The Boogeyman. Why couldn't it be called The Boogeyman? There's nothing that stands out. So you could really call it anything you want as long as it's not taken, and it would just be the same. So significance title, 0 out of 10 stars. I mean, The Bye-Bye Man sounds catchy and everything, but there is no significance to it. 0 out of 10 there. Next one is it sequelable? Sequelable. Do you foresee it having a sequel? Yes, I do. It was clearly leading up to a sequel at the end. It's one of those movies that you could have multiple sequels to if done right. If not, then it probably won't. So, sequelable, 10 out of 10 stars, nothing wrong there. Next one, I always ask, halfway decent. Is it halfway decent? Well, to answer you, when it first began, yes. When it kept on going, I'd probably say no. I think they went the wrong direction by the end. The sequel is 10, but halfway decent is 5. I thought part of it wasn't halfway decent. That means that our ultimate special categories were 35 out of 50 points. That brings our total score for The Bye-Bye Man up to 66 out of 100 possible stars. Not the greatest scoring in the world. It's actually lower than my average of like 74, 75. So, sorry, it is a lamer horror film than most. There are good things about it, but bad things about it. So I liked it well enough, but I probably won't be seeing it ever again. I will check out sequels because there are always ways to better improve a horror film. But they don't often go that route because it's usually Hollywood sequels, meaning they get rid of everybody who was involved the first time around and then they take their own route, which could be good, but more or less likely it's bad. Anyways, I wanted to say thanks for joining me today, but I also wanted to say yesterday my brother and I talked about Prison Break, and we couldn't talk about what I was going to be reviewing next, and that was obviously The Bye-Bye Man. But I also wanted to say the Prison Break premiere was all I hoped it could be if you were joining me for that. It was crazy awesome. And you should check it out if you were a fan of it because it brings you back. I also wanted to say that next week you should be glad to know that I know exactly what I'm doing. Next week is a kids week, so I'm talking about 5 different kids movies. I'll tell you what they are on Friday, and of course TV Tuesday will also be talking about the best of kids TV, so it's going to be a whole lot of fun there. So we're going to do that next week. But to tell you what I'm reviewing next will be Inside Out. Actually, no, I'm not reviewing Inside Out, sorry. I watched Inside Out, but I'm not reviewing it because I've already reviewed it. I will be reviewing Sunshine from 2007 for Thursday, and for Friday I'll be reviewing The Adjustment Bureau. Wednesday, Thursday's Adjustment Bureau, and Friday's Source Code. Sorry, I lost track of my week there. So today was Bye Bye Man, tomorrow is Adjustment Bureau, and Friday is the Source Code movie, and that will end the week with the reviews. And then next week, I guess I'll tell you the kids' movies then. So look out for that. Anyways, so that was today's review. As always, you can comment and subscribe. And you can email me at dave@daveexamensmovies.com. You can visit my website at daveexamensmovies.com. Check out my Facebook, Dave Examines Movies. And as always, you can find out what I'm watching at Trek TV. My username is IAMDWG. And so is my Twitter handle, IAMDWG. Hope to see you guys on there. Shout out, suggest movies to review. I'm always ready to hear from you guys, and I guess that's it for the day. Peace out, and I'll see you tomorrow.